So welcome everyone to the Who Do You Want to Be podcast. And I'm excited about our guest today, Matt McWilliams. And the reason I'm excited to interview Matt is because he's doing an amazing job of helping entrepreneurs to converge their commercial gifts with their passion. And Matt, welcome today.
Hey, thanks, Louise. Thanks for having me.
So let me share a little bit about Matt for those of you that have not yet met him. He is living proof that you can pursue your life's passion and create a profitable business as well, which is something that you guys know that we're very passionate about here. And so I've included Matt in our signature Kingdom Brand series, which is all about converging your spiritual and your commercial gifts so you can create a brand that's so unique that no one can replicate and compete with it. And that's exactly what Matt has done and helps people do. So Matt is the best-selling author of the best-selling book, Turn Your Passion into Profits, right up our alley. And he's worked with some of the top entrepreneurs and companies on the planet. So here's a list of names. It's very comprehensive. Shark Tank's Kevin Harrington, Tony Robbins, Dean Graziosi, Kim Walsh-Phillips, Ryan Levesque, Michael Hyatt, Claire Diaz-Ortiz, Lewis Howes, Brian Tracy, Jeff Walker, and more. Wow, that's pretty amazing. So the proof's in the pudding there. So Matt is here to help you on your quest to turn your passion and your message into a profitable and growing business. And he's been through the startup phase multiple times in the past 2 decades, has built a following from scratch, which we know is not an easy thing to do. And Matt lives out his passion for helping others find their purpose, passion, message, and a path to profitability, which I love. So welcome. It's so good to have you here. I know that the book has been doing amazingly well, and I've got some great questions to ask you today that I know all of our audience are going to love. And that's what when I first met you, I thought, wow, this guy's really filling a need in the market. And what I love about what you do, Matt, is that your business is all around relationship building. It's all around genuine connections. And I feel like with all the noise out there, it's so relevant what you do. And I'm excited to talk and ask you about your book, because over all these years that I've been working with our high performers, even this whole convergence of being able to turn the passion into something profitable is something that most, especially creative people, struggle with. So Here we go. Got a couple of questions for you. Cool. So it is noisy and distracted, and it's getting more so.
Yeah.
So tell us how you think people can stand out in all the noise.
Yeah, I mean, there's a line in the book that this really resonated with so many people. When I wrote it, it was one of those things like I knew it would be. I mean, it was true, but I didn't realize that it would be one of those like iconic lines. It just stood out, and it says, that getting noticed has never been easier at any point in human history. Wow. But standing out is harder than ever. So there's a converse relationship between ease of getting noticed and ability to stand out. If you think about, like, if you go back, 150 years, most people, like, they didn't know somebody, that wasn't related to them. They never heard of anybody outside of like a 3-county area. Most people would never travel outside of their state, here in the US. Most people, you didn't have telephones even. So you didn't even talk to people more than a few miles away. So getting noticed was hard. You might be well known, you might stand out in your community. And that meant that standing out was really easy, because if you were a Thomas Jefferson or a John Adams, in American history, if you were, a political leader or an inventor, a Thomas Edison or somebody, then you stood out, because standing out was actually pretty easy if you could stand out at all. So there's this inverse relationship. And because of all the noise in the world, because there's millions of blogs, there are tens of millions of YouTube channels, if not hundreds of millions now. There are, tens of millions of influencers on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and TikTok. And like, you could never, there was a joke, I can't remember what movie it was, but somebody, they reached the end of the internet.
Yeah.
You realize that if you just took the content that was created in the last minute of your life, the content created in just the last minute of your life, if you spent every waking hour from now until the day of your death and you were 15 years old, 75, 80 years from now, you would not reach all of the content created in the last 1 minute. You could not consume that. There's not enough time in 80 years of your life to consume 1 minute's worth of content.
Wow.
So the question, of course, is how do we stand out? So in the book, I give 4 ways to stand out. The first one is your style and your personality. In your niche, what are some ways with your style and your personality that you can stand out? Your writing style, your speaking style, your physical appearance, your clothes even. So if you think about it, if you're in an industry where everybody's in a suit and tie, what are the 2 extremes you could go to from that? You could either take off the tie, and again, you probably can't be in your industry. If it's suit and tie, you probably can't be like cut off jacket and tattoos. But could you strip off the coat and tie, and stand out that way? Or could you maybe be in a tux? Could you be in think about that would stand out. If you think about it in your speaking style, everybody else talks a certain way and you're from the Southern United States. So you kind of talk like this. That's where I'm from.
I love the South.
When I want it to, if I go spend 6 months down South, it'll come out. And all of a sudden, next thing you know, I'm talking like this because I grew up in North Carolina and Tennessee.
I love it.
So we say things a certain way, and my mom, my sister are very Southern. So when I hang around them long enough, it starts to come out. So if you sound Southern, then lean into that. You're Australian, lean into that. If everybody else in your niche is American, then you know what? Lean into the Aussie, right? Lean into a little bit. So the thing is, and I write about this in the book, that there's a story I heard from Chris Rock, the comedian Chris Rock. And somebody asked Chris after the end of one of his shows, are you like this all the time? And he's like, no, I'm not like this all the time. I'm not like me. All what you see on stage is me, but it's 3 times me.
Okay. That's cool.
That's the key. Be yourself, but be 3 times you. Whatever that accentuating thing about you is, lean into it. So here's the thing, even another way you can stand out is your background, your experience, right? I say those are 2 separate things actually, but your experience, the degrees you've won or that you've earned, the awards you've won, the places you've worked, your background, your personal background. So your personal background, if you think about that, if you are a single mom and you're in a niche full of married men, then lean into the fact that you are a single mom. You might only attract 5 or 10% of the potential audience, but you're going to own that audience. So you're going to tell more stories about your kids and talk about being a single mom. Your personal story, what has shaped you, is a big deal. And that's a way that you're the only one with your story. I'm the only person that I know of. For example, I'm the only person that I know of that lived with a single mom until he was 9.
Wow.
Grew up mostly in trailer parks and small apartments. I moved 13 times in 14 years. I had childhood epilepsy. Then I moved to live with my dad right when his career took off. And so I joke that I only spent 4 or 5 years of my life, 43 years, I only spent 4 or 5 years in the middle class. I grew up poor and then I was wealthy. And I grew up in both extremes. I spent very little time. Most people, to go from poor to wealthy, you go through a transition phase of middle class. It never happened for me. So I was exposed to both dramatic ends of the spectrum on the socioeconomic scale. And then I played Division I golf and I was, so I was a college athlete. And so I know all these things. That's unique about my background. And then the last thing that you stand out, Luis, is your method. So this is your way of doing things. How do you get your message out? Are you going to write blog posts? Or are you going to do a podcast? Or are you going to do videos? If you do a podcast, is it going to be interview based or solo? Are you going to do, really short content? Are you going to do maybe a 3-minute daily podcast or video? Or are you going to do a once a week longer format? Are you going to use personal stories or case studies? Are you going to sell physical products or digital products? Are you going to have a specific system or not? So when you can dive into those 4 things, and there's exercises at the end of the chapter on that, where you can really dive into those 4 things and say, okay, how am I going to stand out? and then start to lean into those things, your personality, your appearance, your method, your background, your experience. Those are how we stand out.
So good. I love that you're sharing things that, most people don't share. And that uniqueness about everyone is such a key, because it's intriguing and interesting, isn't it? Everybody's life story and their experiences are so interesting. And I can see that parallel with you, Matt, that when you went from being poor to being rich, and now that's reflecting in what you're doing and how you're helping people, that true life experience that you've had is what's coming out of your mouth. It's like gold. So it's awesome. I'm like writing notes. This is so good.
Well, and that part of my experience is a great example, because very few people have had that life experience.
Yes.
The reality is most people are middle class. That's where 70, 80% of the population is, at least in the United States, which is my primary audience, and Australia and, other English speaking countries are my primary audience. So most of the population is somewhere in the middle class.
Yeah.
And so it's very rare to have that. And when I talk about that, what I talk about is that allowed me to see things from different perspectives. So I have empathy for people who are struggling, because I've been there, done that. Like, I know what it's like to have, my mom's car was repossessed multiple times. I know what it's like to be evicted. So I have empathy there, but I also saw what was possible.
Yeah.
Like I said, I moved to live with my dad literally about 6 months before his career just went and took off.
Wow.
And, he went from making what was then a pretty average amount of money, mid to upper 40,000, $45,000, $50,000 a year, to all of a sudden he was making well into six figures. And so I saw those extremes, and it opened my eyes to like, okay, this is what it's like, for the first 9 years of my life, this is what it's like to live. And then all of a sudden I saw this other side. And because of where we lived in Nashville. So I grew up, and he was a golf pro at one of the golf courses. So we grew up surrounded by celebrities too.
Yeah.
So it was nothing for me. Like, it was just second nature to, we'd go to dinner with famous people. I'd be playing golf all the time with country music stars. And we went to church with, dozens of people who'd won Grammys and stuff like that. It was like that just became normal for me. And that's a unique perspective on things that opens my eyes, to be able to see things from both perspectives, to see a single mom who struggled and to know what that's like, to again, seeing the flip side. So all those things, but we all have those, whether it's that you grew up with a single mom, or you grew up with, two parents, or you grew up with your grandparents, or that you did this in school, or you did this in school. I mean, like, there's so many things that are unique about your experience. We think our story is kind of boring. Like, I never really connected the dots on that, Luis, until just a few years ago, that, what, that's kind of cool, actually, that I experienced that. That's unique.
Yeah.
Because it was my experience. I just thought it was boring. Like, that's the thing. We forget. We listen to books, or we read books, or we hear podcasts. We hear all these amazing stories and go, wow, their life is so incredible. Not even necessarily good. Sometimes we hear stories and go, wow, that was so difficult.
Yeah.
And then we forget the challenges that we faced in our own lives.
True.
And we forget the obstacles that we overcame in our own lives. Like having childhood epilepsy, that was my experience. So, wow, going to the doctor every single day to have blood drawn for 2 years, I didn't think anything of that. Then I realized, you know what? Most kids don't have to do that.
That's right. Yeah.
Most kids don't have to go in and get an EKG or EEG every week. Most kids don't have to take medicine. Most kids don't have to miss out on most sports when they're growing up, because their parents are afraid that if they get any kind of head trauma, they're going to end up, possibly dead. Like, that's not normal. But it was my normal. So start to think about those things. And there's some really cool ways you can stand out in the marketplace with your story, your background, your method, all those things.
That's so great to hear, Matt. And I love that you dug down a bit more into your story, because I feel like those adversities, those things that you go through that are like the valley seasons, I call them, that's actually where you find the gold. It's in those hard times. And the fact that you talk about both sides of the coin, people can relate to you. And I feel like people are looking for people who are real, not the high on the mountain, got it all together, flying around in my jet plane guys, but the people who they can actually relate to and go, if she can do it, or if he can do it, so can I. And so that that journey in the middle is the part that people need to know how to navigate. And that adversity, you know, I know in my life we've gone through, and I told you when I met you, you know, multiple financial traumas. And that caused me to learn how to create income quickly. But I had to do the work to shift myself emotionally. And I love what you said about how you went to live with your dad and you experienced this different world, because I feel like one of the biggest challenges with people who are passionate and they know they've got a purpose and they're very driven and they're talented often, is that often from the financial point of view, and I know that was my experience before we had breakthrough, is that you haven't actually tasted and felt and seen what it feels like to have money. So you get conditioned to being poor, or you could get conditioned to things being hard. So learning how to move out of that into this place. And the thing that is so amazing to me is when people start to share their real story. I mean, what people can overcome, what the human spirit is capable of, is just so amazing. I mean, people can do anything really, especially in adversity. So let me ask you some more questions.
Well, real quick, Louise, to that point, we all have a comfort level.
Yes.
We all have a comfort level in relationships. We all have a comfort level in finances. I'll give you a good example. Like I mentioned, I moved 13 times in my first 14 years of life.
Wow.
And prior to the age of, let me do the math, prior to the age of 32, when we moved into our house, I'm 43 now. Prior to the age of 32, I'd never lived in the same place more than 3 years.
Gosh.
About 4 years into living in this house, this is as close to our dream house as we possibly could have imagined when my wife and I got married, you know, now 15 years ago. I mean, it's got land, you know, we've got a couple of acres, but we're only 5 minutes from everything. You know, we're less than 7 minutes from all of our favorite restaurants, stores, shopping, everything, right? We're in an area of the town that's growing, and so our property value has gone up almost 100% since we moved in. All the good things, like we love this property. We live on a freaking zoo practically. We have animals left and right. Like we have earlier today, our son was like, "There's the groundhog," and he's like running across the yard, little chubby little thing just going across.
You have road runners?
We have a creek that runs through. We have deer in the back.
Oh,
you know,
beautiful.
all these things, like tons of different squirrels and birds and plants and all kinds of stuff. It's what we dreamed of. Like my daughter wakes up every day. I grew up in like I said, I grew up mostly in trailer parks. So I grew up looking at the side of another trailer. My daughter wakes up every morning, overlooks a pond and this beautiful trees. And it's just this amazing property. But about 7 years ago, after being here about 4 years, I started getting really antsy.
Uh-huh.
And I wanted to move. And I started to find everything I could wrong with this house. Why does that plug not work? Oh, it's because this house sucks. No, it's because the wiring went out. The house is 22 years old. The wiring got messed up. You know, oh, the floor's creaking. Well, that's because this house is a piece of junk. No, it's because the house is 22 years old and sometimes floors settle, you know, and I started finding fault with this house. And then I was able to connect the dots and go, oh my gosh, it's because I'm comfortable moving 13 times in 4 years.
Yeah, you're wired.
I'm not comfortable staying in the same place. And so the same thing is true with us financially. Whatever the number is, we have, you know, T. Harv Eker calls it a financial thermostat.
Yeah.
We have a thermostat. And I know for me in our business that I got, for me, just, you know, the number has gone up, but I keep hitting these plateaus with our, like, all of a sudden things are going really well. And I'm like, you know, I'll throw a hand grenade into the mix. Like, oh, let's go buy a company, you know, and we'll go buy a company. And then it turns out to be a disaster. Why? Because I didn't do my due diligence. And it was almost like I was looking for an excuse to throw away $500,000.
Yeah, sabotage. Yeah.
You know, and so we self-sabotage. And so that's an important thing. Like when we can recognize those, I know we're getting a little bit off track here, but like those are those things that we don't realize from a comfort standpoint, how comfortable we are with whatever it might be. And so for me, when I first started my business, I write about this in the book, like this is the key. If you think that, you know, if you're going to be passionate about what you're doing and you're going to create content. So it's, you know, whether it's to, the guy who did the audio book of version of my book, he emailed me the other day and said, you know, I just want to let you know, like most of the books I read, he's a voiceover guy. He
Right.
does 50 audio books a year. And he's like, I forget most of them 3 days later. But he said, yours has stuck with me. What he wants to do, he wants to help Christian men who struggle with pornography.
Right.
That's his calling. That's his passion.
Yeah.
But he's like, I never saw a way to make money doing that, because he had the belief, because of how he grew up, his comfort level, that if you were going to do something like that, it could only be a what? A ministry.
Yeah.
It could only be something that you made the bare minimum, and you
Right.
barely paid the bills, and you had to be a struggling, starving artist or a missionary to have an impact on the world. And that's just not true.
Yeah,
And so
absolutely.
when we have that belief, whatever it is, like, oh, I need to be a starving artist. Newsflash, most of the successful artists weren't starving. They were actually incredibly wealthy,
Mhm.
And so we see that though. And when we break that mindset belief, that's what the first couple of chapters are all about, is like breaking those limiting mindsets. Say you have to choose between passion and profit. You
Right.
either have to love what you're doing and barely survive financially, or make a ton of money but hate what you're doing. It doesn't have to be that way. While that's where most people live in those two extremes.
Yeah.
You get to choose that middle path, which is, you know what, I'm going to love what I'm doing. I'm going to be passionate about what I'm doing every day. I'm going to make a difference on the world. I'm going to have an impact on people. I'm going to do what God is calling me to do. And you know what? I just might make a lot of money doing it. And that's really cool, because that means I get to keep doing it for the long term rather than burn out 5 years into it and give up.
Absolutely. And this is not off track. This is totally on track, because I know that what I've experienced is when I started to actually be completely uncontained, as in sharing the prophetic gifting I have, as well as the commercial, I started to find my flow and my river and my vertical plumb line. And so the whole conversation around mindset and around money is so relevant, because we've been trained to think like slaves in society. And if you're a middle class person, you get trained to think like a slave. And so this whole rewiring and redefining, what does it look like to be able to create money, create freedom, but still do what you love, is so now. It's a now word. It's for now, this season. And I agree with you with I went over to the States for 7 weeks last year. It was an amazing trip. You're in Nashville, aren't you?
I'm not. No, I'm in Fort Wayne, Indiana.
Oh, okay, cool. I'll have to visit you next time, because I had the most amazing time. But what I love about Americans is this underlying foundation of freedom. It's in your DNA, and I just love that. I get very drawn. I work with a lot of people in the US because there's this amazing ability to look at what's ahead and look at the future and create it. And I love that freedom, that sense of freedom about doing that. So so this is such a good story. And you mentioned content. And so I know that one of the questions I have for you is like, there's a lot of content out there, and you talked about, deciding which way you want to go with your system and your method. Tell me a bit more about that. Like, what are some of the ways that we can create content that's going to cut through into sales? Because there's too many choices about how to go with things. What would you recommend is the best way? And there probably isn't one same way for everyone, right? Because it's got to suit your style and your personality. But in your experience, because you've been successful in getting noticed and getting out there, what have you discovered with all the people you've worked with, as well as being the best way to leverage and steward the time and the content that you have so that it converts into sales and leads?
Yeah, the biggest thing starts, and this is all the way in step 10, and I do not recommend skipping ahead in the book. I've had a lot of people, text me, like my number to text me is in the book, and things like that, and ask me questions. And I'm like, yep, cover that in step 8. They're on step 4. I'm like, do not skip ahead though. It's just there's a sequence that, everything builds on the next thing. But in step 10, I talk about it. You need to spend more time promoting your content than you do creating it, 5 times more.
Yeah.
Most people, they'll put 10 hours into writing a blog post and they'll spend an hour and a half, promoting it.
Yeah, that makes
And
sense.
like, think about a book. I mean, I spent, this is my my magnum opus, right? I mean, I spent between writing it and working with the editors and everything else, I probably spent 200 hours,
Yeah.
all that. I've probably spent 600 hours to 700 hours promoting it. They don't call it a best, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, USA Today do not have a best written book list. Here are the 10 best written books last week. What do they have? A bestsellers list.
Yeah.
Best sellers. It's the marketing. Now, does that mean you go write a piece of crap book? No. I spent 200 hours. I spent the equivalent of 5 full work weeks writing and tweaking the book.
Yeah.
Because yes, we had, 4 editors that my publisher brought on, but I was still involved in that process. So it was a significant amount of time. We spend more time promoting. The biggest thing with content, this is also in step 3. I talked about the 5 attention triggers.
Yeah.
And your content has to tap into those attention triggers. These are, psychological principles. These are things I learned about my freshman year of college at the University of Tennessee, where I took a psychology 101 class. And I remember learning about these principles.
Yeah.
There's pattern disrupt. So disrupting a pattern, like a great, what is it? I wrote this down. I wrote down a podcast title and I'm like, I can't remember. I have it in my notes here somewhere. That's one of my podcasts is coming up like 3 months from now. And I was like, that is a pattern disrupt if I've ever heard one. Oh, why you shouldn't hire me to run your affiliate program. You mentioned it earlier. We run affiliate, but I have an agency and I have an entire episode called Why You Shouldn't Hire Me. And you would think, oh, that's just going to be a sales pitch for your agency. Actually, no, it's not.
Okay.
It is not a sales pitch, right? It's an entire episode about why you should not hire us. Now, if you fall into certain categories, you should, and yada, yada, yada. It's not a backward sales pitch. It's actually talking through like, here's who should not hire us and why they shouldn't hire us and how to do it a different way early on. And so not make the mistake that most people make, which is like, oh, I don't want to do that. I'm just going to go hire somebody. No, that's not the way this works. So that's a pattern disrupt, because the pattern is, well, Matt has an agency and works with some of the best people in affiliate marketing. Well, I think he would want us to hire him. Not if you fall into 95% of the population. We only want the 5%.
Yeah.
So things like that, pattern disrupts, why such and such is wrong, why this food is actually healthy for you. Wait, that's not normal. Even pattern disrupts within like your own content. If you typically email out Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern, and then you send an email on a Tuesday night, that's a pattern disrupt.
Yeah.
So think about that. How can you disrupt a pattern or an expectation? Reward, is a great trigger. Rewarding your audience. There's tons of ways in the book to do that, but just giving them some sort of a reward is a way that like catches their attention. It takes them out. Prestige is one. I talk about the study done years ago that like ads that would have actors who play doctors on television. They would come on and they would endorse a product, and they would not say, I'm a doctor, but they were wearing the white coat.
Yeah.
This was so impactful that they actually passed laws here in the United States that prohibited them from impersonating somebody they weren't, even if they played a character, And so there's ways around it and stuff, but that white coat is a prestige symbol. It's not just a status symbol. It is an expert. It's a signal that you take that white coat plus a stethoscope around somebody's neck. And even if well, that's George Clooney. He's an actor. Psychologically, we cannot get past the white coat and stethoscope.
Yeah.
We cannot do it. So that's an attention trigger, and it automatically draws people in. Uncertainty is an attention trigger. The title kind of plants a seed, but leaves some uncertainty. Well, that's an attention trigger. If you want attention, if you want to get people to watch 2 of your videos, leave them hanging at the end of the first one. You know this growing up, now that we can binge on Netflix. Does anything ever say to be continued at the end? No. Why? Because I'll just flip the next episode on and watch the first 5 minutes and find out what happened.
Yeah.
Now at the end of a season though, there are cliffhangers.
Yeah.
And even with like, 'cause my wife and I are huge fans of Stranger Things on Netflix. Don't
Okay.
judge me. That's our show. That's our show. And there's cliffhangers at the end of a season. But growing up, we always had to be continued, ... on a
That's
black
right.
screen.
Yeah.
And what did you do for the next 7 days with all your friends? You talked about are they going to get together? Is this going to happen? I'll bet that guy's the killer. And we would talk about it all week long. What was that show doing? It was captivating us. It had our attention for a
Yeah.
week. And you can bet that the following week, back when you had to show up on time to watch TV, you had to turn it on
Back
at a
in the
specific
day.
time. That show came on at 7:30. We were ready. We had gone to the bathroom. We had our snacks. We had our spot on the couch at 7:27. And we watched the last minute of the one show and then the commercials because we were not going to miss a second of that show. That's attention. And the last one is just recognition. If there's a way for somebody in your content to go, that's me. That's for me.
Yeah.
Attention, so-and-so, that's me. Sometimes it's even their names. Like on, I want to catch people's attention on a webinar. I have a list of all the people who are on one of my monitors. And I can provide examples and I can say, Luis, have you ever thought about such and such? And it shows me like who's chatting and who's commenting.
Yeah.
And I know that the people who are commenting are the most likely to buy, for one. And so I mentioned their names and I asked for examples. I'm like, hey, I'm going to share an example here. I want a real life example. What's your niche? And somebody will put, well, my niche is, or who's your target audience? And they say, I help overworked nurses. Great. Overworked nurses. That's our example. What have I done? I've recognized that person whose niche is overworked nurses versus just coming up with a niche out of left field.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I can just as easily do. But now that one person at least is going, oh my goodness, he recognized me. He used my niche. How cool is that? Those are those 5 attention triggers you want to utilize.
They are amazing. So good. Because I feel like a lot of people think that the way that they're going to get attention is just to be, aligned with someone who's already well known, but there's so much more to it, isn't there? And I love those examples. We used to have an ad here, and it's like, this is Rob the dentist. I don't know if you guys had it over there, and he had his back to you and he's wearing his coat, and he's cleaning his teeth. It was for toothbrush, and you never saw his face. And that ad still sticks in my mind all these years later, and it is all those triggers. So I love that. That's also, what I'm hearing, Matt, as you're telling me more and more about the book, just the fact that not only are they very succinct and powerful messages that you're sending, but you've actually got some really practical application. And I feel like a lot of times with books, I think that resonates with me because I like to take the idea and help people to execute it, not just to make it a book about ideas. And so you've gone idea to execution, all parts of the brain, and allows people to see how they can make it work for themselves. So that's awesome. So
there's ideas, there's strategies, there's examples, but there's also stories, and the stories, like, when I talked about Alan Thomas, losing 129 pounds in 9 months and becoming a weight loss coach. The point of that story is that I use Alan's story as an illustration.
Yeah.
You don't have to have a degree. You don't have to be an expert. You can just have your own experience, and that makes you an expert, a perceived expert. If I don't tell that story and I just say, you don't have to have a degree, you just need to, blah, 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 then it's like, okay. But when I tell Alan's story, you go, gosh, that worked for Alan. I see that actually happening in Alan's life. That I get it now, and it clicks. And I've had so many people, tell me that was the story that got things.
Yeah. Well, the brain loves stories too, and people love stories because they
remember that. People will remember Alan's story.
Yeah,
they will remember, it's the longest story in the book. They will remember that. I'll give you another example, Luis. Step 4 is all about converting visitors into subscribers, right? And we talk about I can share this, but we talk about how to create a lead magnet.
Yeah.
And I can give you all the strategies in the world. And I talk about how, a lead magnet, you got to provide a quick win. We want to grow our email list. I share the reasons why you want to grow an email list, all that stuff. But I talk about how you got to provide a quick win. And I talk about how you need to provide a solution to pain. And I illustrate that by like saying, imagine you have a friend that's in pain, that they come to you and their back is just, it's excruciating pain.
Mm.
And you hand them a PDF with 37 exercises and stretches to do over the next 6 months. They will hate you.
Yeah.
You will not be their friend anymore.
Yeah.
They want an ibuprofen. They want the pain to go
Yes.
away today.
Yeah.
Think of your lead magnet like that. And I
Mm.
have a friend of mine, I wrote this book for mostly beginner to intermediate online, business, or people who want to start an online business, who want to turn their passions and profits. I did not write this for 7-figure business owners. All right. Just to be clear, but I have a friend of mine that he's about a $2.5 million a year business. And he read the book just because he's my friend. That's the only reason he read it. He was just like, I was kind of curious about how you wrote the book.
Yeah.
He said, I got to step 4 and I heard what it was about. And I'm like, you're talking about lead magnets. I'm like, I get it. These are all things that I already know, Matt. Yeah. I haven't learned anything at all. And then I tell the story of my dad. And I talk about how my dad never had a lead magnet, or never owned a computer, never got on the internet a day in his life, passed away in 2005. My dad was a golf instructor, and I felt like he had the best lead magnet of all time. And I talked about how my dad, as a golf instructor, would walk up and down the practice tee and he would look for somebody in pain, not physical pain, like, ow, my back hurts, but they'd hit a shot and oh, dang it. And they'd hit another shot and they go, stupid game. And they'd hit their club on the ground, and he'd go up and he would say, hey, can I help you out for a moment? And they'd say, yeah. And he spent 5 minutes with that person. He would give them one tip, not 27 tips, not 17 things you can do. This is not the how do you swing a golf club broken down into every step that's going to get you on the PGA Tour in 12 years. No, this is, you're hitting the ball 65 yards right. Let me do one thing that will help you hit it a little bit better.
Mm.
One tip, one thing they could do that's going to move the needle the most. They'd hit a few shots. They were so much better. They would turn them and go, that's the best shot I've hit in months. How do I sign up for more golf lessons?
Yeah, great.
$1,000 golf instruction package. My friend, $2.4 million a year business. He said, I took that chapter. I went to my team. I followed the rules you said. I told them the story about your dad. And I said, this is what a lead magnet is. Ours are too complicated. They re-engineered their lead magnets one day because they had 4 lead magnets. And I have a 3-hour rule. It should not take you more than 3 hours to create a lead magnet. He said, we're doing 2 hours, 2 hours on each. They redid all 4 of their lead magnets overnight. Their opt-in rate went up over 40%.
Wow.
And that would not have happened if I just listed a bunch of things that you have to do and a bunch of rules. He said it was that story of your dad that it changed something in his process of thinking, going, oh, that's what a lead magnet is. And they shifted overnight and were able to improve their opt-in rates.
That's very helpful. And even though I know you've written the book for startups, like even as someone who's been in business for 30 years, I mean, I'm hearing some cut through things that you're saying that I hadn't heard before, for sure. So I feel like it will be relevant for many 6-7 figure entrepreneurs as well, because like you said, there's just one little thing that you can change that can make 100% of difference, right? So that's awesome. So let me ask you a bit about affiliate marketing, because I know that you're the affiliate guy, right? You're the go-to guy to use affiliate marketing to monetize. And so I would love to know more about, how do people get started with affiliate marketing, and what are the keys about affiliate marketing that you help people with that makes them get the growth and the breakthrough that they're looking for?
Sure. The first step is just to understand that it does not serve your audience for you not to monetize. It goes back to some of the mindset stuff we talked about earlier. When you start monetizing, you're not selling out. When you start monetizing, you're not becoming greedy. You're, shift the way you think. Like, you earning money allows you to continue. It allows you to fund the business. It allows you to keep going. And so early on, we basically have 2 options. Number 1, we think, create a product. Number 2, give away content indefinitely. Neither one of those is a good option. We don't want to create a product early on because we don't even know what our audience wants.
That's right.
We're going to probably create a product that doesn't sell very well. We're going to suck at selling. We're still getting our sales like our sea legs under us. Instead, we start doing affiliate marketing, which allows us, and I'll talk through some of the advantages, but it allows us to start monetizing early on. And so
Yeah,
this is about mindset, like how you view making money from your passion ultimately is what determines how much money you make and how much of an impact you can have.
true.
And so many people preach early on, like you should give content. Don't ever ask for a financial transaction. That's what sets you up for that burnout.
Yeah.
All right. So we want to get past that. There's a declaration in the book. Throughout the book, I have declarations that I encourage people to make, like say them out loud, write them down, repeat them, and one of them is I run an online business and businesses make money.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, like businesses make money. That's what businesses do. If you want to have a hobby blog, a hobby podcast, go right ahead. I don't care, but that's not a business. And so one of the reasons I love affiliate marketing is that affiliate marketing bridges the gap between making nothing at all and selling nothing at all and having nothing to sell.
Yeah.
If you have nothing to sell, then you're going to sell nothing, but now it gives you something to sell. So we start doing affiliate marketing. There's a few things that advantages that this gives us. Number one, you get to monetize immediately. I can tell you in your first month or two, if you make even $10, it's infinitely better, not just mathematically, but psychology than zero.
Yes. Yeah.
If you make $10 in your first month, I promise you can make 100 in your second. And I assure you can make 500 in your third and 1,000 in your fourth. Most businesses, most platforms, YouTube channels, blogs, podcasts, you know what they're making in their fourth month? Zero.
Yeah.
Still zero. They're still at zero. You've already made $2,000 or $1,500 or $1,200 or whatever. You are light years ahead. We often say this in our business, zero doesn't scale well. And I talk about this with clients all the time. Like we'll bring on a new client and we'll do their first promotion 30 days later. Here's the reason we tell them we do that first promotion 30 days later, because we used to do it like 90 days in. And we did it because that first promotion will be a $4,200 promotion. This is a 7-figure business starting an affiliate program. The first promotion's $4,200. You go, whoop-de-doo. By the fifth one, we're over $1 million. It all goes back to that $4,200 because I can scale 4,200. I can scale 2. I can scale any number. I can scale 56 cents.
Yeah.
I can't scale zero. So so you get to monetize immediately. Number 2, you don't have any fulfillment. There's no customer service. There's no hidden costs. You're not paying people forget we pay 3% every time we have a credit card transaction.
Yeah.
Credit card transactions, when you factor all things in, cost us 3.6% a year. We go, oh, well, 3.6% on millions of dollars, whoop-de-doo. That's the equivalent of 1.5 team members I could hire.
Yeah.
If somehow our credit card processing went away, I could not only employ an entire other person at an above average wage, but I could also keep some of the money, and that'd be nice, Yeah. So no hidden cost, no risk. You're not going to end up with a bunch of product that you can't sell. It teaches you how to sell. That's number 5 big advantage is it teaches you how to sell. So now you begin to practice. You get to practice selling. You get to practice emailing without depending upon your own product sales. And we call it PTP, paid to practice. You get paid to practice. It's the best kind of practice there is.
Yeah.
You learn what works for your audience. So you learn, okay, what are the price points that are, does my audience buy 3 times more at 500 than 1,000? Well, if they buy 3 times more at 500 than 1,000, you're making more money. But maybe they buy only 20% more at 500 versus 1,000. Well, that means you make more money selling $1,000 products.
Yeah.
And you learn that. You learn the sales strategies. You learn what topics they're going to buy. Should I send 5 emails or send 1 email and go live? Maybe I make just as much money from going live for an hour as I from sending 5 emails. Well, you learn that, right? When you're doing affiliate marketing, it trains your audience to buy. This is so huge. We talk about this in step 8, conditioning your audience.
Yeah.
Like whatever you condition them to do is what they will do. And there's so many other advantages, right down to the final one is it serves your audience. It serves your audience because it fills in the gaps. Whether you're starting out and you have nothing to sell, they want to buy something. They want to take the next level and you don't have anything. But as you grow and you have your own products, affiliate marketing fills in that gap. There's an example I use in the book. I call it the affiliate donut. And that the whole of that donut, this is your core offers. This is your 1, 2, 3, 4 offers that only you are going to offer. You're the best at those. So for us, it's starting and growing an affiliate program and affiliate marketing. Everything else, the donut that's outside of that whole, how do you run a membership site? I know enough, but I'm not going to create a product. So we recommend my friend Stu McLaren, and he teaches you how to do that. How do you do this? And how do you do this? How do you build a team? I'm not going to talk about any of that stuff. I'm going to do affiliate marketing and recommend those products.
Yeah.
So it allows me to serve my audience better because they know, like, and trust me, and my recommendation carries weight. So when I recommend a product, they're likely to buy.
Yeah, so good. I'm thinking as you're speaking, Matt, I'm like, I need to buy 5 of your books and give them away to my clients, because this is so practical, and this is what I love about it, and unique as well. The more you talk about what's in there, I'm like, this is a whole training program, and I know it's all coming out of your head. It comes naturally to you. So let me ask you one more thing about affiliate, and then we'll wind up, and I want you to share, where people can find you. And but how do you choose the right affiliate partners? What's your recommendation on that? Because I guess you can have a whole lot of people selling your product or referring you, but you want them to be aligned with your brand, right? So what's your recommendation around that?
So if you have an affiliate program, and this is, for most people, this is much more advanced.
Yes.
If you have an affiliate program, I just, to be brutally honest, we're not too picky, provided that, they are ethical and they're going to promote us. A lot of times, the thing I love about having an affiliate program is it exposes us to audiences that we otherwise wouldn't be exposed to.
Yeah.
We might not be able to profitably target. I'll give you an example. If my true target audience, this is not true for my business, but if my hardcore audience is empty nester women, so 50 to 64 years old, right? That's our females. That's our target audience. Does that mean that nobody 48 years old would buy? Well, of course not.
No.
But it might not be possible to target the mid 40s to early 40s or late 40s. It might not be profitable because a lot of them aren't good candidates. So how do I profitably target them? Well, I can't.
Yeah.
But if an affiliate promotes the product and they expose me to an audience that's a little bit outside my core audience, I've expanded my reach.
Yeah.
And so you go, well, I don't want to work with them because their audience is a little bit younger than I like. Well, that's a bad attitude,
Yeah.
Now, we always draw the line at, things like saying things that are, just out there,
Sure.
if it's racist or something like that, that's where we draw the line. But as far as do they have to agree with everything that I agree with? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
I think it's great. Some of our best affiliates are people who we fundamentally disagree about certain things within our businesses, but we agree on this thing. And that thing is that, here's how to start affiliate marketing. So they promote our affiliate marketing course, or we fundamentally agree that you need to start an affiliate program. So here's how to start it. Now, might we disagree about, how to use TikTok? Absolutely. Might we disagree about, other stuff? Yep, we do. And that's fine. So I think as long as you're in alignment on the core issue of what they're promoting, that's fine. Again, as long as they're a good representative. And the thing is, 99.9% of the people are.
Yeah.
There's very few bad apples out there. The bad apples get all the attention. But I mean, I think I've worked with over 300,000 affiliates. I think I've probably had to remove 75.
Yeah.
I mean, what is the math on that? 20th of 1%,
Yeah.
Now, do they get all the attention? Absolutely. Did those 75, out of the over $1.5 billion that we've done for our clients and our own affiliate program, did they cost us about $200,000? Yeah. You guys can do the math. What is 200,000 into 1.5 billion? I mean, it's not insignificant, but it's not a lot.
Yeah.
And sometimes it seems like a lot at the time. You're like, oh my gosh, they cost us $22,000. And it's like, Well, in that same stretch, we brought in $114 million. It's
Yeah,
not
yeah,
that bad.
yeah.
And so I
Yeah.
think it's something that gets blown out of proportion a little bit and things
Mm,
like that. But yeah, ultimately what you're looking for is, you know, do they have a passion to promote you? And if they do, if they have
yeah,
a passion to promote you, that's regardless of their list size. Because I can't tell you how many times I've had somebody that had a list size of 2,000 people outperform. I talk about this in the book. It's in step 9. How many times somebody with a list of 3,000 people has outperformed somebody with a list of 50,000 people?
wow, that's
Because they
interesting.
went all out and promoted like crazy, and
Yeah,
they followed what we teach in the book in step 9 about promoting, affiliate offers. So they did amazing,
yeah,
and that has happened time and time again. We did a big study about 5 years ago on this, and all the results are in the book, like the numbers and stuff. And that's what we found was like they went all in. They,
mm,
you know, they they shifted their mindset to believe, you know what, I've only got 4,000 people. Only got, maybe it's 200. I've heard people so many times, they're like, well, that's a terrible case study. That person made 27,000 with 4,000 people. And I go, and they're like, I only have 400. Okay, divide by 10, but
yeah,
make 2,700. Instead of saying, well, I can't do that, I'm going to make 0. No, go make 2,700.
yeah, that's
Because a
right. Yeah,
small audience, it's more intimate, it's more homogenous. The bigger your audience gets, the more outliers you have. The
yeah, true.
smaller your audience when you're starting out, some of these people, you have personal relationships with them. You can DM them on Facebook. You can close sales on the phone.
Yeah, that's
I
right. Yeah,
cannot tell you how many people I know have made $10,000 in a day from affiliate marketing because they picked up the phone and called people and they closed
yeah,
them into, they closed sales. And
yeah,
you go, well, so-and-so doesn't do that. They have a big audience. They don't do that. Yeah, they got a big audience. You got a small one. You got to hustle sometimes when you're starting out.
yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, it's all this, it's all there, but it's like, yeah, ultimately that's what it comes down to more than anything is that passion. And do they care about the success of your product?
Yeah, and the motivation. And I think like that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on here is because I thought this is a piece that's going to add value to my audience and they're going to get something meaningful, powerful, and useful from hearing from you. And also that I'm like, this guy, he's so excited about what he's doing and it came through that passion. So there was an alignment of values there, which made me motivated to promote, what you're doing. And I agree with you. We've had loaves and fishes experiences where we've had 35 people running a challenge and then we've done like 150K in a day from 35 people because even though it may have been a smaller number, there was a deeper connection with them, a personal connection with them that they resonated more. And I feel like what you're talking about with one of the things that, we share a lot is like I talk about catching whales, 6-figure whales, and how the whales have their own language. And so whales in a pod, they call out to each other and they can hear each other across the
Yeah.
ocean. So, we say we speak eagle. And then when people hear and resonate like what you're speaking about with your story, you can have greater results, even if it is a smaller a number of people. So this has just been so powerful, amazing. Thank you so much for coming
Oh, my
on the
pleasure, Louise.
podcast. I'm so excited about people being able to read your book and really growing. And I love what you're talking about, even if it's the small things, being faithful with the little, and also that, the reward center of your brain loves it when you have a little success. Little fish are good too. You don't have to go and try and catch 100K or $1 million whales straight away. Little fish are good as well. So Matt, where can people find you? Where can they get the book? Please share so that.
Yeah. I mean, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Target.
Everywhere.
Yeah, if they sell books, they sell my book. The best place to get it though, guys, if you go to passionsintoprofitsbook.com/Luis. So passionsintoprofitsbook.com. And I know Luis will put this in the show notes for you guys,
Yeah.
/LOUISE. That is the best place to get the book because we've got over $500 in special bonuses there for you guys. So we've got just a ton of extra stuff there. We've got one of our training vaults. We've got a huge swipe file of emails. We've got a whole couple courses on creating content and affiliate marketing. So that's the best place to get it. If you happen to see it in the bookstore, because I know it's in, at least in the US and somewhat internationally, it's in books in Barnes and Nobles nationwide. If you walk into a bookstore and you grab a copy, then go to that URL and just submit your receipt there, and you'll get all those bonuses. It's like over $588 in bonuses.
That is amazing. Thank you, Matt. I'm going to go looking and seeing if I can find it in a bookstore in Australia. I'm sure it's here somewhere. Might be out at the airport or somewhere. So, well, I'm coming back to the US again, and I'll have to come and visit you over there. But thank you so much for your time. All of your amazing insight. You're a genius. I love what you stand for and the way that you work, Matt. And I know that my audience will really get a lot of value from this. And so go ahead and get that book. I'm going to buy 5 of them and give them away because I'm feeling very excited about what you're doing and how you can help people. And thank you so much for coming on our Who Do You Want to Be podcast.
Thank you, Louise.